The Brookings Institute just released its Foresight Africa report, top priorities for the continent in 2015. Some of the issues the report focuses on is the 2015 presidential election in Nigeria, the 6th Forum on China-Africa cooperation, and this year being a crucial year for financing development in Africa. It also looks at a strategy action for fighting Ebola and how the West can do more militarily in Africa. Mpule Kwelagobe is the CEO for the Institute for Endogenous Development, and he's here to talk to us about this report. Thank you for coming on Arise Xchange.
Thank you for having me.
First, talk to me a little bit about what your organization does.
Okay, well, the Institute for Endogenous Development is actually an independent think tank that I founded 3 years ago. We focus on inclusive growth and sustainable development in Africa. Last year, the key focus was looking at agricultural development and how that sector could be a sector that Africa could leverage for industrialization.
And when you talk about sustainable growth, agriculture is key because of the new technologies being used, for example.
Absolutely. But, you know, even more importantly for us, at least from our perspective, is looking at the jobs that agriculture can create, especially for women and young people. I think, as you know, that we're facing a youth unemployment crisis across the continent. And so in our research, we looked at those economies that are agriculture dependent, including Nigeria, Ethiopia, the DRC. Essentially, the most populous countries in Africa are actually the agricultural dependent economies, and is the same economies where they're facing very high levels of youth unemployment.
And why is that? Why is agriculture providing that kind of challenges?
Well, I mean, a lot of it has to do with migration, right? A lot of people are migrating from rural parts of Africa, going to urban parts of Africa. So we are seeing expansion of urban slum population. A lot of young people, because of globalization and technology, really don't want to go into agriculture because they're associated with farming and that image of the woman with the baby on her back and the hoe out in the field who can barely feed herself and barely provide for her family. So a lot of young people are really not interested in that type of agriculture, which is why mechanization, as you talk about technology transfer, is absolutely critical for African agriculture.
And how is Africa doing at moving away from an oil-based economy? We talked about the Nigerian elections coming up. You know, Nigeria is very much an oil-based economy, though it has been moving away with new technologies, with the movie industry, for example. But overall, is the continent doing a better job at this?
I think since 2003, when the heads of state launched the Maputo Declaration and made a commitment that they would invest about 10% of their GDPs in agriculture, we have been seeing significant improvement. So we are seeing economies like Nigeria that are also some of the biggest importers of certain crops like rice, for example, that are now actually investing a lot more money into agriculture. I think we need to do more. Of course, we need to be able to both focus on smallholder farmers, but also in commercial agribusiness. But I think we are seeing an improvement since those commitments have been made. And last year, the African Union had declared 2014 as the year of agriculture and food security. And that helped to drive the momentum of the need to invest in agriculture.
Food security was a big topic at the IMF last year. But what about the idea of free trade agreements? Is that something that will be good for agriculture?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you know, the fact that some countries, it's actually easier for them to import staple crops or some sort of commodities from Asia or from Europe than it is for them to export within their own regional bloc. I think trade absolutely will make a lot of sense because it would enable then for countries that have a surplus to be able to export to nearby countries.
So where are businesses looking to make investments in Africa right now? What's hot?
I mean, I think Nigeria is actually a pretty hot place, but I think what's on everybody's mind...
It's Africa's largest economy.
It absolutely is. It's Africa's largest economy. It's the most populous. But I think everybody is a little bit nervous about the elections. And I think that's really what the Brookings Institute reports begins with, right? And they dedicate a full chapter just to Nigeria.
Okay, so let's talk about Nigeria for a moment. What is the risk with the elections?
Oh, where do we begin? I mean, no, really. I mean, you know, first of all, what the Brookings Institute report points out is, of course, the North-South divide. Sure. And the fact that, you know, these are the elections when the North feels that this is our turn, we have to assume the presidency because we have this sort of informal agreement about rotating. And then, of course, you have Boko Haram. I think that's another something that's also exacerbating people's nervousness around the elections in Nigeria is that, is this going to be something that becomes prevalent? Are you going to see more attacks beginning to happen in other parts of Nigeria?
Well, there's no question that the threat of violence in Africa is one of the big overhangs for the economies everywhere.
Absolutely. And again, that's another point that the report makes, right, where they talk about what the West can do militarily in Africa. They talk about where the hotspots are. We saw the Central African Republic. There was uprising in Central African Republic. It displaced a lot of people. We've seen the two Sudans, of course, that, also there was a civil war that erupted between the two of them, and we saw the peace talks being held in Ethiopia. They talk about Libya. Libya is increasingly an issue, and they talk about how America, for example, needs to invest in training both the military and the police services in Libya. So there are all these hotspots. They talk about Mali, that Mali is still an ongoing issue, even though the situation is stabilizing a bit. The Congo, for example, the Congo is continuously dependent on the African Union peacekeeping forces.
A lot of uncertainties, but a lot of opportunity as well.
Absolutely.
Mpule, thank you so much. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you so much for having me.